Game over. Game over. Lights out. You've just been completely obliterated publicly. With
Cool.
your wait, you've been caught. You've been folded like a chair, caught with your pants down.
Is that just God's will and that it ought to
Anyway, you don't need to try and argue with me. It's self-evident.
well, we can just disagree there, but I don't think that
No, if you
I don't think well,
continue without a legitimate question that you have, then you're probably just going to get booted out, is all I'm saying. We're interested in questions people really have.
wait, it is a question I really have. I'm asking if God allows for evil in yeah, if when a child is born with leukemia, is that just God's will and that it ought to happen? That should have happened?
It's God's will to allow it to occur, just like He allowed my son to be born with hollow prosencephaly, who then
Hmm.
died literally in our arms. All right? So this is
I'm
not
sorry to hear that. I didn't.
hypothetical. I understand.
I'm
I appreciate that. I appreciate
yeah.
that. But I heard his last heartbeat, literally. Okay. So, so I'm just saying things happen in the world. And what my wife and I, for example, said, well, Lord, why did you allow this? We never got an answer. We do
Hmm.
know that sin is in the world, and sin has its effect on the physical realm as well as the spiritual.
Hmm.
Part of the physical aspect of the fall is such things like that. And my wife's Louise Dietz syndrome and my autism. So these are the effects in the physical realm. But God is willing to allow these things to filter down through creation. He allows them to filter down because there's the issue of responsibility, federal headship, imago Dei. We'll get into that. But God chooses to do that. Furthermore, you have to also study this thing called the heck, the ultimate. There's ultimate, proximate, and causation. Sheesh.
Hmm.
Ultimate cause, proximate cause, and efficient cause. These are things you should study also because God is the one who allows things and arranges things, but He's not the one who causes evil, but He uses it. And no disrespect meant to the atheists, but it's pretty typical. They don't study these things, they don't understand them, and so their arguments are deficient based on this. They need to study those kinds of things and understand the difference between efficient causation and proximate causation. God
Hmm.
is ultimately behind everything, but being the ultimate source of something does not mean that He is the efficient cause of their evil. But He can certainly bring the circumstances to bear by which people can freely choose to do evil, but yet it's not outside of His knowledge, and He utilizes it for His greater good. This is the Christian God.
But
Okay?
now we're talking about the permissive will again, right? We're talking about the people that will do evil.
Yeah, kind of. Because I've noticed that these kind of discussions, the six things that need to be understood are decretive will, prescriptive will, permissive will. Those are three. Ultimate cause, proximate cause, efficient cause. Those are three. There's two categories, three things in each. That's all. Once you understand them, you go, oh, this is what the Christian is going to respond with. Okay?
Yeah, I think I understand. So, then, like, if a tree falls and it just hits some animal and something that, like, normal people would deem to be bad, right? Like the colloquial sense of bad. I would just take that, even the colloquial sense, to mean just that which ought not happen. Um, God is just allowing for that, in the sense that it ultimately it comes down to a greater good, sort of in the ends justify the means type, right?
No, it's never the case that the ends justify the means, as though he wants evil to occur and because he just wants it to occur and that's going to help out. It's not the right thing to say. The Christian perspective is that God's knowledge is eternal and his decrees are eternal, that they've always been set. He manifests them within created time. But we are created in his image, so we have the ability to freely choose.
I think you cut out.
Can I have a go, Lag?
Yeah, sure. I think you're up next.
Actually, no, you're in
Actions.
a queue and you're behind some people, Billy.
No worries.
I think you cut out, Matt.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what you heard last. I am traveling, so
Yeah,
I'm
it's,
back home to Idaho.
regardless, you did respond with the ends never justify the means, right? So if like a tree falls and hits an animal, which is something that normal people would like deem to be bad, um, it, why does that happen then, right? Or, like in the
Well,
Christian perspective, what is it that makes this thing good? Is it somehow the spiritual realm?
well, there's two ways to tackle it. Let's say a tree falls on someone, kills them, right? Is it good or bad? It's a fair question. Well, the question implies that the action of the tree falling and killing someone has a moral value. Well, how does a tree falling have a moral value in an atheist world? Well, they can't
Well,
say it has a moral value. They have to shift the idea of what good is to something else.
But
Now,
if we're
good
doing
is
wait,
an
not.
eternal
Billy.
critique,
Sorry, Matt. Go on.
Okay. Now, good in that perspective is shifted away from the definition of God out of God, definition of good out of God's nature. How does an atheist justify the issue of a tree falling good or bad?
I can
In
respond.
what sense is it good? And there's different senses, because in different senses you can say it's good. I could agree. Oh man, it was bad. The guy, he had a family. He was providing for his family. That's really bad. He died. That's not good. In that sense, we would say, yeah. But is that the only sense which has validity? Are there greater things to know? If God exists, what greater plan is there? And so, if it's an ultimate plan, then there would be a goodness to it from that perspective. I'm not saying we have to dive into every one of these like this, but you can't just say one level of something is good, therefore, in all levels it's good. Or one level of it it's bad, therefore, in all levels it's bad. See? See what I'm saying?
I think so. Um, so it. In what sense is it good though? Like if the tree falls and kills someone?
Well, if God had a plan for that to occur, let's say it was God's plan that that tree fall on that guy for a specific reason that God knows, but He doesn't reveal to us. Well, then it would be a good reason, but we just don't know what it is, and so then we could say, yeah, it's good in that sense, but in the sense of now the family doesn't have a provider. Well, that's not good in that sense. There's different senses, so we can't say, for example, that when the family doesn't have a provider now, that means it's good or it's bad the same way God wanted it to be good. No, that doesn't make any sense. So we have to be careful and to understand that there are different levels of how something can be good or bad.
Yeah, I
It's
think this
different
is
senses.
all the silly. Oh, sorry. I thought. Yeah, okay.
No,
Yeah,
I'm
I
sorry.
think this
Go
is all.
ahead.
Yeah, I think this is all the syllogism is trying to prove. The syllogism put forth earlier. So I think that if Matt, you just are willing to say that in some sense it's good for this guy to be hit by the tree, but we will never know why because God is above us. But we might falsely deem it as evil. Um, I think that that's fine, right? That we would just call that ultimately it would just be good because God willed it, right?
Yeah, you could say on one level, ultimately it's good, but temporally or from a human perspective, it's not good.
Sure.
We wouldn't call it evil necessarily. You could say that because you don't know. Maybe that guy, is a secret,
Yeah, like a
child
mass murderer
pornographer
or whatever.
guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think that's all
yeah,
the Yeah, yeah. Real quick, I think that's all the syllogism is trying to prove, right? Then there is really like the syllogism is ultimate talking about ultimate good and bad. So in the sense that it is like there is no such thing as evil in the sense that it's no such thing as the ultimate evil because everything is going in accordance with God's plan. So if someone is killed by
uh,
a tree, even though no.
but ultimate evil is a problematic expression because there's only one ultimate. The ultimate is God. God's not evil,
Well,
so the
yeah.
phrase ultimate evil doesn't make any sense.
Well, sure. I I don't know how the word is. Maybe it's just like a language barrier. But when I say like it's ultimately good, I'm just referring to like the sort of like an ends justify the means thing, right? It's just
Okay.
not justified, but God makes this happen because it's a good thing that it happens.
Well, how
Like
about
in the
this? Here's
end.
another sense. How about? Oh, can you hear me? Okay, because I'm in a bad area. Can you
Yeah,
hear
I
me?
hear you.
Okay. So let's say sin is working its way through the world. Sin is causing all kinds of problems, and God lets sin work through the world for a gigantic, at the end of everything statement where God says, "See, I told you so." And so, not that that's the best reasoning, but there could be an ultimate sense of the vindication of God's truth. You say, "I let you guys have what you wanted. You wanted this. That's why there's problems because of what you want, not because of what I want. I want you
Exactly.
to have your freedom, and so I'm letting you have it. So I'm wanting it to occur because of what you want. That's another way of looking at it. There's lots of different ways and perspectives.
Yeah. So, yeah, if I don't think that neither me nor you nor like Jeff, any other people here disagree no longer. I think that it's just going to be a semantic dispute. People, when they say that evil is what ought not be done and God allows for evil, that's when you say God does not allow for evil, you're just talking about the ends situation. I don't know how to say it other than
But
like the ends justify the means, but I know that you don't like that illustration or whatever, like formalization. I mean, but that's fine, right?
yeah, but when you when you say evil is what not ought be done, what does that mean? See, ought not in what compared to what? In what sense? Because God doesn't want evil to occur in one sense, but He does want it in another sense.
Well,
That's
this is
why
the exact thing,
this
right?
idea. What's that?
No, this is the exact thing that in one like just in one sense, just in like the barest minimum one sense, God wants evil to occur.
In one sense, He does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, in one like even if even if evil occurs, it's not really a bad thing in the end because we either learned a lesson or it was like to prevent like this like the tree example, the mass murderer from killing others or like these things, right? So, like it is
The,
evil
the,
from our perspective, but uh, ultimately going back to like the mind of God, it's not really evil.
But
yes,
hold
it
on.
is.
But
Yes,
since
it is
God is the
evil. But it
is
is.
God
It is evil. Because evil is that which is contrary to the nature of God. Like Satan is ontologically evil. He is evil. But God wills to allow him to exist. Okay?
and I was just gonna throw in there. You keep appealing to God and the ultimate. But since God is the ultimate, can He not declare something evil since He's the ultimate mind and the one
No,
with authority?
he doesn't
Well,
declare things. He reveals.
yeah, well, I understand that distinction as well, but he, like he reveals things to be evil, right? Or he doesn't allow for evil. He allows for evil in our perception, but our perception is flawed. Wouldn't you agree with that
Okay,
formalization, Matt?
evil, there's an ontological evil, which is different than a weather evil, a virus evil. There's different kinds of evil. So you see, this is the problem the atheists have is describing what evil really is. So they step into the Christian worldview because they want to refute the Christian worldview, which is really interesting. And they want to use the idea of good and evil, which they have no justification for. So they'll say, okay, from the Christian perspective, evil is God is a contrary to the nature of God. Well, in the sense of his holiness, that's true, but not in the sense of his permissive will. And so the atheists don't know this or refuse to include this in their arguments. And when they ignore the differentiation, then their argument doesn't have any merit because they are ignoring other factors that relate to the argument.
So, lag, lag, lag.
Hey, what's up?
You're so seems like you want to say that like uh, tell me if I'm wrong here, but you're trying to say Matt's position, which I think Matt is disagreeing with, but you think that his position is that these evil events aren't really evil, they just appear evil, and since there's some greater purpose for them, they aren't really evil.
I think it's kind of weird to formulate it that way, but what I'm trying to say is just that God is really just allowing anything that God allows to happen um is good in the very end of things. So if
Yeah,
what we
what's the
yeah,
so what's the justification of that claim?
the justification for that claim, I'm trying to
Yeah.
understand. Uh, I'm trying to understand the perspective of a Christian, right?
Oh yeah, but it seems like your whole argument hinders on the assumption that if God, so I'm a determinist, just to come straight at you. So I'm going to use maybe a little stronger language than Matt. So if God causes an event to occur, that event ought to have occurred. I think that's a non sequitur. Like I don't see the reason to believe that.
If God causes, well, sorry, you're a determinist, and if God causes yeah, well, yeah, I think that follows.
Yeah, what's the argument for why it follows?
Well, based on the conversation I've had with Matt and the understanding of the Christian perspective I have so far.
Well, that's too ambiguous for me to really
Well,
answer.
okay, sure. So, Matt is saying that God allows for evil in the sense that we understand evil, but the just our perception of evil doesn't really mean that it's evil to him.
No, I think what we're saying
Therefore,
is
when he
like God
allows,
doesn't have evil
I was sorry,
motivation.
I need
Oh,
to
go
think,
ahead.
like to clarify that. Yeah, so that I wasn't finished with the argument. I know I took the pause there. So, God allows for evil in our perception, but our perception is flawed. The 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 acts that God allows, yeah. So, God's perception of these things are not evil, really. Yeah. So when we say evil, we're just equivocating, and evil doesn't exist. It only exists in our understanding.
Can I add a little
So,
something? Oh,
oh, go ahead.
sorry. I'm sorry.
You can if you want. I'm not gonna hog the mic.
That's okay. I've been hugging. I, if the premises work like this, if I can repeat it properly, that evil is that which is contrary to God's nature, but yet God wants evil to occur, therefore evil is not contrary to God's nature, is self-refuting. See what I'm saying?
I think so. Yeah. Well, I maybe it's just my misunderstanding of the argument or whatever, or I mean the syllogism that was presented earlier. But I think that we would just have to agree, everyone, that evil occurs evil occurs in virtue of God's like will, right? We will, in some sense, God allows for evil.
Because we've
Yeah,
been
I think
saying,
God allows, causes evil, whatever you want to say.
Sorry, Vincent, what was that?
yeah, it's His will to allow it. Yeah.
How did you formulate that, Vincent?
Oh no, I'm willing just to agree with you. Yeah, he allows evil. It causes evil, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, okay. I then like what I was trying to get out earlier was that the the quote unquote atheists or like anyone would say that or someone could now say that agents that allow for evil are also evil. And
Yeah, and that's a so I actually sent you a message about that because that's precisely a principle I don't hold to. I think that just is an assumption you're getting from like creaturely causation. There's many philosophers like James Anderson who don't think we can just infer from creaturely causation to divine
sure,
causation. So to me, there's like
it's
an
just
assumption
it's just going to
that
end
the
up being
creator-creature
a
distinction.
semantic dispute, right? It's just going to be like a
No, that's not
definitional analytical
semantic.
truth, but it's
No,
only in virtue of
no,
the
no, no. That's not semantical. Why is it
because
semantical? Well,
they define them to be that way. But if philosophers disagree, that's just going to be a distinction on the definition.
no, well, yeah, but
If I, wait if
that's not
wait
semantics then. That's not just merely saying
if
different
Vincent,
phraseology for the term.
if I define an evil being to be any being that allows for evil, then God would most definitely be be evil, right? But we can disagree on whether or not that is a true definition.
Ooh, okay. So yeah, if you want to define evil as any being that causes evil,
Or allows for
um,
causes, or allows for. But yeah, oh yeah, sure, you're a
causes or
determinist. Yeah,
allow for,
I know.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and I would just like say, I don't. So to me, that's just
Yeah, I forgot. So,
I don't accept that view. So you got to give some reason for that view itself. So that's just a different argument
well,
altogether. Like, what proof do you have for that?
wait, the definition?
Yeah, why should I accept that view?
Well, you don't have to accept it. I would just say that that's how I
Well,
define it.
I think that goes, and once, I just see I just think that's just don't take this as an insult. This is not an insult, but like to me, that's just lazy analytical
Well,
philosophy.
that's fine.
Like to try to just to well, I don't mean that as an insult. I just think there's been a tendency to just try to define one's position, like, oh, that's just the meaning of the terms we're using, kind of thing. And
No,
but you know as well as I do, we could just use terms differently.
yeah, yeah.
And
To be extremely clear,
they,
it's not the terms that we are using; it's the terms that I am using. Or and I'm not even using that term, right? I'm saying that the atheist would do that, or could do that. That's what I'm saying. Sorry, could do that.
yeah, but it's not. That's that's not really
No,
compelling.
no, I'm not trying to persuade someone. I'm trying to like resolve the issue of the syllogism, because people, well, the title of the room, the problem of evil, isn't the problem, right? But to them, that people that define evil agents to be agents that
You
Well,
allow for evil, they
you're
would
like
say,
assuming it's a problem.
let me show you like the level of argument. As much as I'll take that seriously, like I just define anyone who disagrees with me as wrong, so therefore everyone else is wrong. So you really see what I mean? Like, what? How far can just? How does that really go?
well, I think that's somewhat
I just
true,
say it's an
actually.
analytical truth. You disagree with me, so it's not really
Yeah,
useful at the end of the day, in my
it's
opinion.
just going to be a semantic dispute, the dispute of whether or not we define it this way.
I disagree, but I see what you're
Wait, are we
saying.
not?
Think you're wrong
Are
on
we
it.
not disagreeing on the definition though?
Um, give me a second.
Yeah, well, okay. If you don't want to call it semantic dispute or whatever, I'm fine with that as well. But I think Billy has been waiting for a long time, and I don't want to hog the mic no more. So if that's fine, JB, I'll just mute up and stay quiet.
Well, hang on a second. I think Vincent got a call, so I want him to be able to respond to that when he
Oh,
can.
okay.
But I want to let Matt or somebody else jump in if they wanted to really quick before Billy starts a new thing.
Well, I'm just listening and enjoying you guys while I'm driving.
Well, maybe you see this differently, Matt? Maybe wouldn't you just say,
Can you
like,
hear me?
if an atheist just says that I define an evil being to be anyone that allows for evil, um, to be evil, right? Yeah, yeah. So wouldn't you just say that you don't agree with that definition, because like you already agree that God allows for some evil, yet you wouldn't call God an evil being, of course. You're muted, Mac.
So you haven't listened to anything anyone said about first and second causes at all yet?
Me?
Yeah, I believe it was discussed in here earlier about
Oh,
permissive and prescriptive will. You didn't hear any of that?
oh yeah. But I was talking. I did hear that, but I was talking about the things that are not in terms of prescriptive will. I was talking about in terms of permissive will. So the things that does not depend on our actions. For an example, like a tree falling over a serial killer. Me and Matt were discussing that, and he agreed that it seems bad to us, but to God, it's actually a good thing. He allows for evil in that sense, that we understand it to be evil, but it's not necessarily evil in the virtue of us understanding it just that way, with
Have you
proper
ever
knowledge,
heard
of
the
course.
term compatibilism?
If I'm familiar, yeah, I'm somewhat familiar.
So you can't explain it though.
No, I cannot explain compatibilism. No, especially not in English. But what I don't see how that relates to the issue. Could you elucidate?
So the compatibilism is that, and let me know if the sound of this fan blowing on me is too loud. But God is not the author of evil, and He set up in the garden the possibility for man to fall, and man freely chose disobediently to fall, and sin came from that. All the effects of sin, these things in the world you're complaining about that you think are horrible and that everybody thinks are horrible when they happen to them or people they love, or even if somehow they have a compassionate heart towards their enemies, it pains them to see happen, are all a result of the fall. That was a disobedience that man was allowed to choose when God told man not to do it. And so man's will at that point was free, and also God is sovereign. And so compatibilism is that God is sovereign, and also man was allowed to make choices that had consequences. They're both true.
Where the determinists will take it a step further, and I think is more consistent, it would be that, yeah, man can, and I also too like when you hear compatibilists and determinists talk with each other, it almost sounds like they're saying the same thing but in different ways. Is that, well, man has the freedom to operate within his nature, but when you go one more step, it's but man didn't choose how his nature goes. So um,
I don't see how that raises any objection towards what I've been saying, though. Uh, Especially
I
what you
don't know.
said, JB.
I didn't bring it.
I think you're Tom. I think you, Tom, are just like trying to elucidate on the topic, but I'm trying to see the objection because God still allowed for the fall, which consequently allowed for evil, right? So God is maybe he's not the author of evil, fine, but he did allow for evil in the permissive sense, and and by by consequence also the what was the word again? I'm blanking out. Like this, not the dismissive sense.
Compatibilism,
No. The permissive sense, permissive will,
prescriptive.
not descriptive,
Decreative.
the creative. Yeah, the creative will. Thank you, Tom. And quite frankly, Matt just openly agreed that God allows for evil in some sense, right? So this dispute isn't going to be whether or not evil occurs, because Matt agreed that, or sorry, that the dispute isn't going to be whether or not evil occurs, unless you have some disagreement with Matt. Um, Sorry,
That's what the
invert.
syllogism implies. The syllogism, right from the start, is saying because ultimately there is a good that God that brings everything that God does is for good. The implication of the syllogism itself is saying that therefore
Yeah, there is no
everything that
evil.
is done is good. There's no evil. Basically, that's what the
Well,
syllogism does. Do you agree with that position or not?
uh, do I agree with that? Wait, that's confusing. Uh,
No, what I'm saying is that that's been the argument right from the start, so that we don't, because it's not whether we agree on some point. We've maintained from the very start. You can watch the replay of this video, of this room. It's always been said from the start that God permits evil. That's a standard Christian worldview and understanding, because the scriptures clearly says that. We're not disputing that nature. The problem is it makes no sense when you end up with the conclusion that there is no evil. In other words, the statement that God permits evil, or evil is that which ought not to be done, it becomes a silly vacuous statement, because there is no evil in the first place that ought not to be done. That's the
well,
point.
then that's just gonna be fine. I don't agree that there is no evil, but that's because I don't believe in
No, fine.
God,
No,
right?
fine. That's your position. I'm just saying that if you're going to make a reference to any of those people in the first place, that's what their arguments were, that there is
Well,
no evil at all. And I asked them specifically, I said, would you consider rape evil? And they said, no, they wouldn't.
Well, that's not really what they said. They said given the arguments. That's what they
No,
said, right?
I asked, yes, yes. The point is, I
Yeah.
asked them in their own worldview. I said, given the argument, I said, apart from the argument, I'm asking you directly, do you think evil occurs? They said, no, it doesn't. That there's no such thing as evil. So I asked them, is rape evil? So apart from the argument, I asked that specifically. Apart from the argument, is it so that there's no evil? Would you
Well,
consider rape not evil? And they said,
well, I can't really
yes, there
answer for.
wouldn't be evil.
Yeah, sure, sure. I can't really answer for all the meta-ethical views involved.
Thank you. That's why I kept saying don't
Wait.
refer to them. I want to hear Lag's argument. I don't want to conflate
Oh,
you with
my
everybody
argument.
else.
Wait, you want to know
No,
my
no, no.
morals?
What I'm saying is I want to know your point of view. I'm not interested in what you are trying to say about them because ultimately I don't believe anyone can speak for anyone. We're all here as Christians, but we all have differences and nuances of beliefs in different things. So to assume that we agree on every single thing would be an assumption on your part.
Well,
Do you
yeah,
understand what I'm saying?
I
I
don't
agree
assume
that
that.
there's no monolithic way of looking at
Yeah.
things. So what I'm saying is
Well, I
what
can give you
Matt has
my
been
accounting
discussing.
morals if you want to. That's
Good,
fine.
go ahead. So, because it's easier to engage lag rather than a hypothetical thing out there, because hypothetical things is a waste of time, really.
But then we're no. That's fine, right? But I thought I saw the title of the room, and then we're no longer going to talk about the problem of evil. The problem of evil is only a problem for someone that holds to a view that God exists, right? It's not a problem for me because I don't
No,
believe
no,
in God.
no. It's not a problem for those who are Christians. It's a problem for those who hold to a position different from that of Christians because they see it
Well,
as a
sure.
problem. They say that God is all benevolent, is all loving. They're the ones that come up with all these syllogisms.
Oh, I would
We
disagree.
don't.
I would
But
disagree. I think it's a matter of definition.
Are you a
but
So,
wait,
Christian,
wait.
sir?
Was
no,
I
sir,
going?
I'm not.
Okay, then
Num
you just made a point, yeah.
Numdi,
How did I make a point? How did I make a point?
he was trying to say, Numdi, should I give my account of morals?
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
you go. Then I.
Game over.